Hello, my name's Tom Stoukas, and it's Daily Recall coming to you from Sarnia, Ontario. March 1st. March. Holy. It's a new month. I didn't even realize it because it's a short February. So it's Saturday, and what's been going on today, for those following, after yesterday's explosive fight in the White House, I think it was the Oval Office, where basically Trump threw out Vladimir Zelensky, leader of Ukraine, in a very public argument, which basically shocked the world, and they're basically still talking about it today. The repercussions are still rippling throughout the world. But it's very interesting. And one thing's for sure is Donald Trump, regardless of what you think of his behavior, you have to take a stand. You can't really be wishy-washy either. In the case of Ukraine, you're either, and the argument with the fight with Zelensky, you either support peace talks and diplomacy, or you support keeping the war going until Russia is destroyed, or we all die in a nuclear war. So it's funny how all these other politicians have to respond to Trump's basically line in the sand here to Zelensky, and it really shows you who's on what side. For instance, like in Canada, we have, obviously, all the Liberals are for continuing the war in Ukraine, and our opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, is basically got the exact same policy. In fact, he wants more involvement, if anything, if I'm correct in reading his criticism of the Liberals, saying they're not doing enough for Ukraine or not doing it fast enough. So both our main parties want to keep warmongering. So it's a big problem. But Pierre didn't even talk about it. He only talks about stuff like this when he has to. And this is the second time Trump has put Pierre on the spot, because before, Donald Trump signed the executive order saying there's only two genders, and so Pierre had to answer the question. And he barely answered it. He was very wishy-washy on that. And the same thing with Ukraine. He didn't want to say anything about Ukraine. He just wanted to let the peace talks take it and let it go away. Heaven forbid Pierre has to actually take a principled stand on something important. Something like, important like COVID or World War III. Instead of saying we need a ceasefire, we got to stop this war, like a principled leader, he's basically spouting the globalist line, and we'll go through the posts. So that's what we've seen today. The big aftershocks of yesterday's developments. Globalist tears are flowing hard after Trump threw out Zelensky, and they're still flowing good, and I don't think they're going to let up. That's how much Trump shocked them. And whatever you think about Trump, he shocked them all right. You cannot deny that. And now the warmongers in Europe, along with our Canadian guy, Justin Trudeau, who I have no idea why he's jetting off to jolly old, I believe it's England, for an emergency defense meeting of European leaders to decide what to do now that Trump's basically said this war is closing up on. Like, the U.S. is closing shop on this war, or you guys can keep going if you want. Or something. I don't know what's going on. So they're meeting, big emergency meeting, and Trudeau flew over there. So let me get this straight. The guy's going to be gone in 8 days. Country's being faced with a lot of economic uncertainty. Our country, not Ukraine. And what's he do? Piss off Donald Trump by throwing all his support with Zelensky, even though he knows what, that could bring some blowback to the country for no reason. Like, why should we put our necks out? And so, yeah, he's got 8 days. He's pissing off Trump. The country's facing a lot of economic, and he's jetting off to England to trying to continue a war that probably most Canadians don't support. So, this guy just needs to go away, man. He won't. 8 days, man. Just go. Or at least if you only have 8 days, sit, sign some papers and shit, and give some letters of, those letters you get to the send to the grade 8 kids. So anyway, yeah, man. So yeah, we're seeing this thing. Everybody has to basically take a position on Trump's actions yesterday. So let's go to the daily recall. This is basically the big story today. Globalist tears are flowing hard. I'm sure some people have drowned. So yeah, Ukraine basically dominated the news, and there's a sense that something's got to be resolved. Like, it can't keep going on. But there's probably a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to. All right, this is the start of the day. Okay. Start of the day. All right, first post. Oh, first post was from Aaron O'Toole this morning. Congratulations to Premier Ford and the Ontario PC Party on your victory in stepping up to defend our economy. He's going to defend the economy. Oh my gosh. Well, maybe he will. We'll find out. Yeah, I tried to make a joke. I said the only thing Doug Ford can defend is his spot on the buffet line. I wouldn't want to try and butt in front of Doug Ford at the buffet. And this Robin Urbach from, I think she's columnist for the Globe and Mail, formerly CBC. Robin. In about 8 years, this sniveling loser will write a book about how he knew what Trump and Vance were doing was a betrayal of everything America stands for, but he had a thorn in his shoe and had to pee or something, so he couldn't say anything. So she's talking about Mark Rubio, who sat beside J.D. Vance while he was arguing with Zelensky. So, yeah, she's really butthurt. Globalist warmonger, tears continue to flow today. Ha ha ha. Next post. Anthony Koch. He's been very anti-Russia. His family must have got kicked out of Russia or something. All right. Anthony Koch. When Medvedev gives you this kind of endorsement, you know you're wrong. So, Dmitry Medvedev was called Zelensky. He used to be president of Russia. He's like Putin's vice president almost. So he said, called Zelensky an insolent pig. Finally got a proper slap down in the Oval Office, and real Donald Trump is right. The Kiev regime is gambling with World War III. So, sounds like the Russians told Trump, we're getting sick of this. And I said, you should go fight for Zelensky since you love the little clown so much. Put your money where your mouth is, Koch. That's the thing. Like, if I ever go on Twitter or X and I'm like, want a war, pushing for a war where people are getting their blown apart to keep going instead of diplomacy because the one side's evil, then I should be going over to fight. The day I do that is the day I go sign up to go fight. until then, I'm not pushing any wars. But yeah, these guys, they like to talk tough. We need to do whatever to beat the Russians, but why don't you go over then? And I remember this too. Okay, we're talking about a lot of Ukraine and a lot of Ukraine history, what we got us to this point. And I remember this when George Bush was president in 2008. His administration was full of globalist, neocon warmongers who wanted to destroy Russia. So that was their whole strategy. And during the Bush presidency, they pushed expansion of NATO to Russia against a lot of senior officials saying it's a bad idea. And so he started it basically. Obama continued it, and to the point where the coup happened in 2014, and then the Russians took Crimea, and then obviously 8 years later we're here. So let's see what Bush says. See, Bush is a puppet too. He's told what to say.
We spent a lot of time talking about NATO.
This is 2008.
First, I do want to remind people that Ukraine and the NATO alliance have built a strong partnership. Ukraine is the only non-NATO nation supporting every NATO mission. In Afghanistan and Iraq, Ukrainian troops are helping to support young democracies. In Kosovo, Ukrainians are helping keep the peace. Ukraine now seeks to deepen its cooperation with the NATO alliance through a membership action plan. Your nation has made a bold decision, and the United States strongly supports your request. In Bucharest this week, I will continue to make America's position clear. We support MAP for Ukraine and Georgia. Helping Ukraine move toward NATO membership is in the interest of every member in the alliance and will help advance security and freedom in this region and around the world.
Trump just told Volodymyr Zelensky.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, I don't know how it's Ukraine and Georgia, which are right on the butt end of Russia there. Why them being a part of NATO is going to help Canada's security he didn't explain that part. And second, I remember this in 2008 when he said this. Putin said, if you guys do this, if you try to go down this path, it's going to be a war. He said it in 2008, guys. People forget about events like this, but a lot of senior U.S. officials and academics said this in 2008. Bad idea. Next post. There's globalist warmongers. In an extraordinary display of public support, heads of state, heads of government, and foreign ministers from all over Europe and Canada are posting in support of Ukraine in response to the Oval Office meeting with Trump, Zelensky, and Vance. So yeah, basically, the globalist uniparty blob. Ukraine is not alone. It's basically all the same. You're not alone. You're not alone. Free world. So it'll be interesting to see what these European leaders just talk about or announce at their emergency defense meeting. Let's see what Melanie Jolie just spoke with Ukrainian foreign minister to reaffirm Canada's unwavering support for Ukraine. Unwavering? I don't unwavering support nobody. Just Canada. That's it. So that's kind of traitor talk there. Ooh, unwavering support. Why would I unwaveringly support Ukraine? Tell me why. Canada remains committed to providing the necessary assistance to ensure Ukraine's security, sovereignty, and resilience. Yeah, that's not our job. It's Ukraine's job. You know, we have barely are doing a job on ours. Oh my God. Justin Trudeau, the guy who won't go away. Russia illegally and unjustifiably invaded Ukraine. For 3 years now, Ukrainians have fought with courage and resilience. Their fight for democracy, freedom, and sovereignty is a fight that matters to us all. Canada will continue to stand with Ukraine and Ukrainians in achieving a just and lasting peace. Like, you're going in 8 days, so just shut the hell up. Go and leave and don't talk anymore. I cannot wait. It's not that like I'm naive and I think once Trudeau leaves, everything's going to be magic. No, I'm not that way. But at least we don't have to listen to this guy. Let him go surf and do whatever. Just leave. And then here's another. I saw this today. And another next post here. Another anti-white article by you-know-who. Can white men finally stop complaining? For 50 years, we've been hearing from white men who feel threatened by the gains of women and minorities. Not that the manosphere is in charge. The victim mentality has to go. Wrote Joanne Lippman. I'm never going to stop complaining, okay? Ever. All right, Kirk Lube him up. Sorry, Kirk. The only thing wilder that needs to be added in context to Donald Trump, J.D. Vance explosive meeting with Zelensky today is that in Canada, we literally have a politician campaigning on setting up a nuclear alliance against America. And Chrystia Freeland will do anything for Zelensky. Yeah, she needs to go to Ukraine and stay there, traitor. She's more concerned about Ukraine or about her globalist master's plans for Ukraine than she is about Canada. Like, it's clear. It's disgusting. We have some big problems here. And I'm not talking just Donald Trump's tariffs. I'm saying we got a lot of problems. And Ukraine can worry about their own problems. I don't want to sound, but it's serious. Serious. All right. So I said Chrystia Freeland is a traitor because she cares more about Ukraine and her globalist masters than she does about Canada, and she's a retard because, well, have you heard her talk? There you go. And here's Aaron Mate, his take on things. I like Aaron Mate. Zelensky played along with Biden's strategy of destroying Ukraine to bleed Russia. He did. He didn't care that he was going to lose, his country was going to get murdered. He was rewarded with adulation from a uniparty U.S. and media political class and in Canada. But Americans got tired of footing the bill and elected someone who vowed to end the war. Now his subservience results in humiliation. Okay. Yeah, like, if you're looking out for your country, you're going to want to be, not friend, you're going to not want to get into a war with Russia. And if this war could have been avoided, it should have been avoided, and he failed his people. Just like Trudeau failed us, just like all the globalist leaders have failed their people. Unfortunately, he failed his people, and a lot of them are dead because of it. I like this too. This is a good meme. Please give me more money. No, America first. That's Zelensky. And then there's Netanyahu, more money now, and pull my chair out, boy. Yes, daddy. So I'd love to see him do the same thing to Netanyahu. And I think, you know what? I don't think he likes Netanyahu. But it might be one of those keep your enemies closer deals. But that could ever. I know he's been pissy with Netanyahu in public. Because Netanyahu pissed him off because he congratulated Biden before the right away, and Trump was still contesting the election. I don't know. All right. And this, we're talking about Ukrainian history. We saw the Bush video. This is in 2019. So the Bush video was in 2008. This is in 2019 when Zelensky was president. And he's not very serious, like, when it comes to people's lives. Like, at this time that this was happening, 2019, people in eastern Ukraine were getting bombed. People were dying, and look at him, he's laughing. Like, this is trying to solve a problem peacefully that could result in war, which it did. And he's there laughing. So I want to see this video.
Как это и предусмотрено на основе. Необходимо, конечно, продлить срок действия договора об особом статусе отдельных регионов Донбасса. И в конечном итоге придать этой норме постоянный характер.
Like, what's he on cocaine there? You take a few lines.
No wonder Gene Hackman's two daughters went out for.
Screw this guy. So I said, not laughing now, funny guy. Always laughing, this guy. Next post. Oh, more history today. Today's been a good history day because now that there's a side or a faction that wants to end the war, including probably Elon, who owns X, you're actually seeing different viewpoints. Because before, when the war started and Biden was president, anybody who spoke out against the war was a Russian stooge or Russian plant. So now that Trump's kind of torn that all apart, there are the views, and there were still views against it, but they were attacked. So now more people are looking at the history of Ukraine, I see on the internet here. So we have another tidbit. This is even later. So we had 2019, Zelensky, the Minsk summit. And then we have 2008, George Bush in Bucharest, pushing for more NATO. And then we have in 2001, so we're going back even further, when Sam Nunn, and I remember Senator Sam Nunn, he was a very powerful senator, and chaired the Armed Services Committee. He was a very powerful senator. Stood against NATO expansion. He warned that pushing NATO's boundaries would provoke Russia and hike the risk of nuclear war. But his caution fell on deaf ears. Let's see what he said. I remember this.
You set in motion certain reactions. We don't want Russia to feel threatened, so they go out and deploy thousands of tactical nuclear weapons as they had before. We had a unilateral type arrangement in early '91, which I applauded at the time, where we reduced our tactical nuclear weapons and they reduced theirs. We didn't have an arms control treaty, though, no means of verification, and now we are legitimately concerned that as the Russians feel that NATO is expanding, as the Russians feel that they themselves have had such a severe erosion in their forces, they're going back to more relying on tactical nuclear weapons. We don't know where they are, and we don't know how many there are. So that's one of the downsides of unilateral moves, and as we take this next approach, as some are talking about, for perhaps unilateral cuts in strategic forces, we need to learn from the history of that experience, and we need to make sure that we, I think, follow any unilateral moves with some types of agreement that provides accountability and transparency. And that means the long, tedious negotiations that we've always had to go through. Frustrating, yes, but there is, in the final analysis, no other way to make sure that we can verify and to make sure that we know what's happening. So tactical nuclear weapons are a threat. NATO expansion aggravates the Russians in no uncertain terms. There's no question about that. It causes them apprehension. And I do not think it's in our security interest to have a paranoid and Russia that is in a state of economic deterioration. Some people differ on that, but I really would debate that long and hard, because I really do believe that those countries that want to get in NATO primarily want economic integration to the West, and we ought to give them that. But NATO is a military alliance, and if it's going to provide for our security, it's got to remain a military alliance. It's not a purely political or purely economic move, but when you make a move in a military alliance to expand to the borders of your former adversary, you set in motion certain reactions from them that are not necessarily in the security interest of the world.
Okay. He's a good senator. Back then, when there was actually some senators who had a brain and knew kind of geopolitics. Now the ones that are there now are either 100 years old or they're dumb as shit. So like Sam Nunn was a good one. But this is 2001, okay? We're talking like 20, almost 25 years ago. This guy was saying exactly what's going on today. What's going on today would happen if we do this. 25 years ago he's saying this. And then in 2008, Vladimir Putin said, Bucharest summit, or the Bucharest meeting, whatever. It's red line. Everybody said red line. And then 2014, 2018, 19, 20, and here we are. Okay. So Sam Nunn was right on the money. Oh. Lots of good history lesson today. Okay, next post. And this is another thing. Oh, they're all feigning outrage how my grandfather and greatest generation didn't fight in World War II to see our country side with murderous thugs like Putin. This is a disgrace. Like, I don't know. Some of these people are dumb because regardless what you think about Putin, Stalin was way in a league of his own. He's probably one of the worst in history. So, and we helped him a lot. I don't know if he would have stood against Hitler if the West didn't give him the supplies and money. And with the greatest generation happily sided with a murderous thug, Joseph Stalin. Spare me your hyperventilating moralism. Yes. These people have no brain, man. All they think is do what they're told. They say what talking points they're told, and that's it. Bruce Arthur, who the COVID commie who wanted people locked up, who people unvaccinated, people locked up. Now he's on the Slava Ukraini. I can't stand Bruce Arthur. And I said, go fight the Russians, tough guy. That's what I've been saying to people. I've been saying to people all day who are like pushing for more war, go fight. If you believe that much in it, go fight. Because it's going to, if you think it's as dangerous as you say it is, go fight. Go fight. That's my message to you. And once again, we're talking about Trump forcing people to actually answer and state their position without a wishy-washy answer. And here's Trump, Pierre has to defend his... I don't know what he's defending here. Teen cancer. Basically, he says he had to say... Trump said in an interview that he's Pierre. He doesn't like Pierre. He's not MAG. He doesn't say nice things about him. And Pierre had to say, "I'm not MAG. I'm for Canada first." I don't know. It's like he's always on the reaction. He's always responding to stuff that's said instead of actually saying it in the first place. I don't know. Okay, back in 2015, Professor Noam Chomsky warned that NATO pushing up to Russia's borders and the 2014 coup made Ukraine's tilt towards the West unacceptable to any Russian leader. He made it very clear this was a direct trigger for the conflict. So that's 2015. How long is this?
Expand 1 inch to the east. That was the phrase that was used.
So Russia has been provoked.
Well, what happened with the idea that Ukraine might join a Western military alliance would be quite unacceptable to any Russian leader. This goes back to 1990, when the Soviet Union collapsed. There was a question as to what would happen with NATO. Gorbachev agreed to allow Germany to be unified and to join NATO. It's a pretty remarkable concession, with a quid pro quo that NATO would not expand 1 inch to the east. That was the phrase that was used.
So Russia has been provoked.
Well, what happened? NATO instantly moved to East Germany. Then Clinton came along, expanded NATO right to the borders of Russia. Now there are the new Ukrainian government, the government after the overthrow of the preceding one. The parliament voted, I think, 300 to 8 or something like that, to move to join NATO.
Which you can understand why they would want to join NATO. You can see why Petro Poroshenko's government would probably see that it's protecting his country.
No, it's not protect. Crimea was taken away after the overthrow of the government, right? And he's not protecting Ukraine, is threatening Ukraine with major war. Well, that's not protection. The point is, this is a serious strategic threat to Russia, which any Russian leader would have to react to. That's well understood.
So, geopolitics 101 here. We're looking back at history. 2001, 2008, 2015, 2019. It's not like this came out of nowhere, boys and girls. All right, here we got Zelensky back during the election, signing bombs with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Not smiling now, are you, funny man? Like, seriously, who goes to a bomb factory and signs bombs? That's disgusting. Okay, Laura Logan. I like Laura. She likes spitting out some truth bombs. Ukraine war for dummies. Trump, end the war. Too many people are suffering and no one wants World War III. Putin, okay. Zelensky, no, give me more money and weapons. Globalist. Trump is pro-Putin. We the people, F off. End the war. No more money or weapons. Yes. I've been saying it since the start. End this globalist war. Because, you know, anybody with a brain could see this was a planned, provocation for years. But the media does their job and trains everybody to hate Russia. Okay. Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO of Rumble. He made a good point here. And this is what I kind of said before, is Trudeau's destroying Canada and all he cares about is Ukraine. Same with Pierre. So Chris says, Canadians need to wake up. Canadian politicians took the side of Ukraine over America. This is an idiotic position that only deepens the wound. It's an idiotic position that only deepens the wound with America. Every Canadian politician complaining about tariffs just proved they want them. How can they expect to negotiate now? So yeah, Trudeau basically, all the Trudeau government is basically immediately threw their support behind Zelensky and called for the war to continue until Russia's defeated, whatever. So basically totally contradicting Donald Trump's initiative. So yeah, great job, guys. Like, sticking Canada, not your necks. Canada's necks out for Ukraine, for this guy, Zelensky. You know, instead of saying, yeah, we should do a ceasefire, peace, diplomatic solution, whatever, which you haven't said for 3 years. So, yeah, way to look after Canada's interests. Like, this is bordering on treason. Like, I don't know what else to say, you know. We're bordering on treason here. Like, they're literally destroying the country in front of us in real time with their behavior. Like, right now, Trudeau's in, who knows, God knows what he's talking about over there. This emergency meeting. And here, this is, oh my gosh. I don't think she's winning anything, but you never know. She could if Carney stumbles, but she's on Bill Maher. Listen to her. Oh my God.
Remotely in 3 minutes, if you're. I saw recently, I think it was last week, Ottawa, I see, is trying to pass a law limiting the amount of time you can idle your car. Now, I've been in Canada in the winter. It's pretty fucking cold out there.
That's why we used to have snowbirds before we decided we didn't want to spend our money in the United States.
And I don't think this, I mean, the reasoning is...
What a dummy. I'm not going to listen to her, but what is she doing on Bill Maher? Like, what the hell is she doing on Bill Maher? God, she is annoying. She needs to go. Go to Ukraine. Stay there. Stay there. We don't want you here. All right. This is the tweet before our World War II ally. Stalin was way worse than Putin. Way worse. All right. Next post. Canada is screwed with these treacherous leaders. Big changes are needed. This is what I was saying about how they're just totally, like, Freeland wants to join an alliance with Denmark and nuke the States. Trudeau's in England plotting war strategy. Pierre's all even more for the war than they are. Like, it's crazy. So here we are. Here's where we are, Canada. Carney shit the bed by lying blatantly. He's a lying banker, of course. Freeland running on I'm a mother. And Gould certified retard. Polyev is in the midst of alienating his base. O'Toole 2.0, which, yeah, he's turning into it. Trump's making him look like is showing him up, like making him appear like the, you know, liberal, fake conservative that he is. So Polyev in the midst of alienating his base. O'Toole 2.0. Jagnuts, pussy, neo-terrorist is just sad at this point. May alcoholic, moot point, non-threat. It's a perfect storm for Trudeau to rescind his resignation. No. It's a mess, though. It is a mess. The whole Canadian government. Not a peep from Doug Ford either. No Slava Ukraini from him. I'm sure he'll pop his head out soon. Next post here. Pierre. That's what I said before. Pierre Polyev only talks about tough subjects and policies when forced to, and his answers are globalist wish-wash, weak stuff. So this Jack guy says it was a good post. I agreed with it. This is the way the message should have been put out by Pierre. As leader of Canada's Common Sense Conservatives, I've always been clear we stand with peace between Ukraine and Russia. I also firmly believe the future of Ukraine must be determined by the Ukrainian people in democratic elections. Conservatives, democratic elections without interference from U.S. aid and George Soros. I also firmly believe that the future of Ukraine must be... Okay. Conservatives will from now on use common sense and stand for freedom, democracy, and Canadian way of life. Stop the war, ceasefire now. Yeah. Pierre hasn't said that. Stop the war. Like, he has no... He's just a coward. He says whatever the line is. The low globalist line. No principles. And here we are, back with the history. This is a stupid post. I know one thing. This is Justin Sexton. Sounds like a goof. Zelensky would have received a hero's welcome from these guys and sent home with enough ammo to go all the way to Moscow. Yeah, of course, because these guys are globalist war criminals. War criminals. Because they started the Iraq War, these guys. Globalist war criminals would, of course, give him a hero's welcome. Of course he would have. These globalist war criminals helped start the conflict with Russia in the first place with their NATO expansion policies, as we saw that Bush video in Bucharest. So yeah, of course they would have given Zelensky a hero's welcome before they stabbed him in the back eventually. This is from Jim, PPO leader Jim Torba. Zelensky needs more conscripts. Let's help him reach his goal and cancel the visas. Slava Ukraini. So more than 100,000 Ukrainians in Canada have emergency visas that will expire this year. Well, there you go. There you go, Zelensky. 100,000 more. All right. Next post. Ryan Garrettson. So we're talking about Trudeau. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is set to fly to London in advance of a meeting that he will attend with European leaders about Ukraine as per the PMO schedule. And then Ryan Garrettson. This guy sure cares about the impending tariffs Canada could be hit with in 3 days. These sick individuals want Canadians to suffer so they can pretend to come riding in on their white horses to save us. They really do want Canadians to be solely dependent on them. So yeah, we're saying how instead of like trying to fix Canada and avoid a trade war with the U.S., they're provoking a trade war with the U.S. and pushing to continue the war in Ukraine, which only hurts Canada's interests. So they're hurting Canada and provoking a second conflict with Donald Trump. First conflict we had was over this trade bullshit. Now we got this conflict because we're supporting Zelensky over Trump. How is this putting Canada's interests first? It's not. There's a word for that. It starts with a T. Oh, I said Trudeau is a globalist traitor. He is. And then, so they're going to destroy the economy on purpose. And then everybody's going to get CERB 2.0. And that's going to be it. Nobody's going to work after that. And here's another meme of some sort. We need to see Trump speak to Netanyahu the way he spoke to Zelensky today. Long overdue. Maybe someday that'll happen. I won't hold my breath. It could happen, though. The one thing about Trump is nothing should surprise. Anything possible. Oh, and then we're Mark Carney. Oh my God. It's like literally, it's like global bots here. Pierre, Drag Me, Melanie Jolie, Trudeau, they literally all look. It's like one Borg hive mind. So Mark Carney's like, freedom and democracy are always worth fighting for. Slava Ukraini. And Randy Hillier says, wouldn't it be grand if politicians volunteered to join the Ukraine military rather than volunteering our money to fight for democracy? Yeah, none of these guys will go. None of their kids will go. None of their family and friends will go. But they'll send anybody else. Right now, they don't mind sending the Ukrainians to die, and then they'll send some Europeans, maybe some Canadians. Next post. So Pierre is a poser. He is a poser. He doesn't stand for anything. He's weak. He didn't say jack during COVID when they were banning people from flights and restaurants. He didn't say nothing. Now he's saying, okay, so Herb Powell. Why does Pierre Poilievre want Ukraine fighting a war? Why does he want mass immigration? Why does he support the COVID vax? Why does he support the Paris Accord? Why do people say he's Canada's Trump? What is wrong with y'all? No, he's not. He's a globalist. Trump knows it too. No. More history here. This is the former president of Ukraine. Bragging, saying how they're bombing the Russians in the east of the country. Let's see what it says here.
І так, і саме так ми виграємо цю війну. Тому що у нас робота буде, у них немає. У нас пенсії будуть, у них немає. У нас піклування під дітей, під людей, під пенсіонерів, під дітей буде, у них немає. У нас діти підуть до школи і до дитячих садків, у них вони будуть сидіти в підвалах. Бо вони нічого не вміють робити. І так, і саме так ми виграємо цю війну.
So that's before the Russians invaded. He's talking about war against his own people in eastern Ukraine. Because there was a lot of Russophobia and a lot of Russian speakers over there. So there was a lot of fighting years before the Russian operation. But conveniently, they failed to mention that when they're arguing about Russia. And there's Greg Wycliffe. Canadian politicians are clearly owned, of course. Because they all say the same thing. Literally. Except for Maxime Bernier, but he's not elected. These guys are all elected. When the convoy rolled into Ottawa, Trudeau fled. When Jasper was burning to the ground, he was surfing. When Montreal riots broke out, he was twerking to Taylor Swift. Now that we're 3 days away from tariffs, he's off to the UK. Trudeau's a coward and a national disgrace. He is. What's he going to do in the UK? Embarrass us? Probably. Did he really need to go? Did he really need to go to the UK? I don't think so. Canada is not. He really had to rush the UK for the Ukraine war. What a guy, man. And there's John Mearsheimer, more history lesson here. John Mearsheimer, who I like, I've read a couple of his books. He was right all along. He was repeatedly slammed as a Putin apologist, yet his analysis from a decade ago remains undeniably accurate. So this is from 2015.
Encouraging the Ukrainians.
A lot of good history videos here.
What's going on here is that the West is leading Ukraine down the primrose path. And the end result is that Ukraine is going to get wrecked. And I believe that the policy that
2015, he said this.
Which is neutralizing Ukraine and then building it up economically and getting it out of the competition between Russia on one side and NATO on the other side is the best thing that could happen to the Ukrainians. What we're doing is encouraging the Ukrainians to play tough with the Russians. We're encouraging the Ukrainians to think that they will ultimately become part of the West because we will ultimately defeat Putin and we will ultimately get our way. Time is on our side. And of course, the Ukrainians are playing along with this. And the Ukrainians are almost completely unwilling to compromise with the Russians and instead want to pursue a hardline policy. Well, as I said to you before, if they do that, the end result is that their country is going to be wrecked. And what we're doing is, in effect, encouraging
that outcome. I think it would make much more sense for us to work to create a neutral Ukraine. It would be in our interest to bury this crisis as quickly as possible. It certainly would be in Russia's interest to do so. And most importantly, it would be in Ukraine's interest to put an end to it.
So yeah, nobody listened. They didn't listen to him. And so this is basically looking at all these videos of years ago, clearly saying what's going to happen if you do this policy of NATO expansion, and it did happen. Crazy. So when you say Russia an unprovoked attack by Russia on Ukraine's democracy, I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, and these videos clearly prove that. So whoever says that is, a propagandist. This is geopolitics 101, man. It's not really rocket science. Next point. This was interesting. Tucker Carlson. Oh no, I can't read all this. He basically commenting on Lindsey Graham, who basically disavowed Zelensky, and he was Zelensky in Ukraine's one of Ukraine's biggest backers. So there must be some dirt coming out that because Lindsey's a scumbag, and he's disassociating himself from Zelensky, not on principle. Tucker saying, but because he doesn't want to be associated with any bad corruption coming out of. That's going to come out of Ukraine under Trump's presidency. And it makes sense. Because I was kind of surprised to see Lindsey throw Zelensky under the bus. Usually he would have tried to get them patched up. And there's more globalist tears over Zelensky's White House hit. Keep on coming. Daily Mail. A spectacle to horrify the world. It was. I know the globalists are horrified. They probably were like, whoa, no. A spectacle to horrify the world. What a headline. I wasn't horrified. I thought it was crazy, but I wasn't horrified. All right, next post. Okay, so it's all Ukraine today. Prediction. Ukraine will now lose more territory to Russia than they did before yesterday, if not all. Yeah, I mean, if they don't get on board soon, Russia's going to go just plow right through them. And we're, encouraging them to. It's ridiculous. And this is the new German Chancellor. Merz, his name is. Chancellor Merz. Look at this guy. All the European leaders look like this. Globalist. Stooges. Just weak, skinny, looking men. Ugh. Weak globalist puppets. And this Trudeau's plane flying, get taken off to England. Emergency. What do these guys think they are? Emergency summit. Next post. So, Pierre's getting a lot of slack for his response to this. This was his chance to kind of differentiate himself from Trudeau, whereas Trudeau's really tied himself to Zelensky. This is clearly his chance. Polyev, now, he's not going to do it on his own. He's got to be pushed by Trump, just like he was on the gender issue. It was clearly his chance to kind of push himself apart from the Trudeau globalist line on Ukraine, and what do you know? He didn't do it. This is what he said. As leader of Canada's common sense conservatives, I have always been clear we stand with Ukraine in its defense against Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion. We just talked about geopolitics 101, Pierre. I also firmly believe that the future of Ukraine must be determined by the Ukrainian people. Conservatives will always stand on the side of freedom and democracy. Come on. Geopolitics 101. It doesn't even call for a ceasefire, nothing. Blames it all on Russia. So he's a total globalist, just like Trudeau, just like Carney. And he's getting a lot of flack from his base, who doesn't want nothing to do with this war, and they're starting to get impatient with him because they see Trump's strong stance against the war, and then they see Pierre's wishy-washy. They're starting to like, ooh, we don't like what we're seeing. It's starting to look like Aaron O'Toole here. Only 8 days left until Trudeau is gone. Yes, 8 long days. Who knows what he's gonna screw? Who knows what he's gonna screw up before 8 days is over? Next post here. More history. Oh. Cuba was not allowed to form a military alliance with Russia in 1962. Cuban Missile Crisis. The U.S. was ready to nuke Cuba and invade it, or they blockaded it because there was Russian military missiles in Cuba. Same idea here as in Ukraine.
Border. Think the U.S. would accept that? Why did I ask for a map of the United States and Mexico? Well, the United States has a pretty large border with Mexico. Now imagine that you have a revolution in Mexico. That's not that hard to imagine. And imagine that the government that comes to power is not a big fan of the United States of America. And I think that too is not difficult to imagine. But since it's a little bit afraid of Big Brother, it asks the Russians to send over 3 or 4 or 5 divisions to be placed on the U.S.-Mexican border. Think the U.S. would accept that?
No.
So why would the Russians accept this? That's what it's really all about. Does there have to be a compromise? In my opinion, yes. And the compromise has to be that Ukraine, guaranteed, will not become a member of NATO. And then the compromise is that the Russians get out.
Yep, and that's what it's going to happen, I think. And then we'll finish off tonight. Regardless of what you think of Trump's behavior, he makes people take a stand for or against him, as we are seeing with the global reaction to yesterday's fight with Zelensky. Predictably, our elected officials in Canada continue to throw their lot in with the more warmongering globalists, which it's disgraceful, and people in Canada seem to put up with it. I don't know why. We got to get off it, like. And Pierre's thrown his lot in with them, so I don't see it. It's gonna be a tough ride for Canada with the leadership we have. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow, same time, and we'll see how many more globalist tears flow from now until tomorrow. All right. Have a nice night. We'll see you tomorrow.